when we look at that part of Gartner, it was not long ago that the FP&A community talked about driver-based planning. Today, we go literally one step beyond. And Liran already highlighted in his presentation a Gartner research of earlier this year. Gartner came up with calling it the new era of continuous enterprise financial and operational planning. And all Gartner talks about was extending planning and analysis, and how this integration of FP&A and operational efforts has affected our company, I'd like to share with you today. So next slide, please. Before I start, I'd like to briefly introduce our company to you. We are a subsidiary of Deutsche Bahn. Deutsche Bahn has 300,000 employees, and DB Regio started its operations 180 years ago. It was back then that we had a steam-powered engine, and that one pulled a train with passengers. Today, we still offer passenger services in Germany. We're a market leader in public mass transportation, and we operate over 22,000 trains for 5 million passengers a day. With this, we make 8 billion euro, which is probably around 10 billion US dollars a year. And needless to say, we need a firm grip on our financials for a company as big as ours, because that's definitely vital. Only a few years ago, and Larissa pointed that out to you, we started to set up a value driver tree and started to develop a performance canvas. So when we look at this page here, you can see it on the left-hand side, and it became the basis for our performance dialogues with all levels of management. Apart from our view on competitiveness and customer satisfaction, we also closely look, of course, on turnover and resources. We shouldn't want to discuss the necessity of driver-based planning today, but it's today the best practice method. So where financial plans include assumptions about business activities, which are modeled in such a way to drive financial output. In the next step beyond all this, you'll find analytic solutions so that scenarios can easily be revised, and you want to change input drivers, for example, by just literally pushing a button. Needless to say that this picture is highly dynamic, and today's modern technology adds a lot of speed to your implementation. With our company, we're implementing a real-time model and commenced our discovery tour on using machine learning and artificial intelligence. We want a multi-dimensional driver-based approach and want to integrate it in an overall business intelligence platform. So we definitely have to get rid of our data silos. And in addition, to facilitate the extension of planning and analysis to our operational units across organizations, we do this because we're deeply convinced that a rollout of digital processes will make us sustain in our competitiveness. Can I please have the next slide? So initially, we started with driver-based planning, baby steps, so to say. And we looked at major items with impact. That operational cost with the financial effect was the one that we looked at. But no matter how well we did in the planning in the past, a solid prediction was only possible when our key value drivers were fully understood. So we learned a lot more with modern technology, and I think we wouldn't be fast enough to proceed without it. Now, saying this, I'd like to introduce finally our use case for machine learning to you. Well, I picked energy cost. It's to illustrate our machine learning journey. And I think because in our company, there are two large cost positions to look at for energy cost. It's electricity and diesel. So why did we look at it at all? Well, especially for environmental concerns. And of course, the financial impact of diesel consumption made us develop an application. Diesel is necessary because countrywide there are large rural areas and their train operations are often provided only a few times a day. And for this little use, those tracks were not provided with any electric infrastructure. And that's the reason why 1/3 of our fleet still is run by diesel. So we learned that our challenge was that there was no metric system implemented in our fleet of diesel trains to monitor its specific consumption. And we definitely wanted to get up to better predict and plan our future consumption. At the beginning, the only metric we found was the consumption of a train, for the consumption of a train, that we had a date when the tank was filled up, at the end, then the amount of fuel loaded, and then at least the date again when it needed a refill. But with this, we didn't know much on the specific day or specific train line or on a specific route segment. So filling up a tank and returning to a gas station once it's empty was a very, very poor indicator for us. So the task in front of us was to generate a metric system. And we started by installing a telematic box in the vehicle to retrieve diagnosis data. Then we streamed this data, plus the vehicle's GPS position, to a cloud-based server. And at last, we developed algorithms out of that data that was derived to simulate its specific energy consumption. We aimed at a better analysis and a better planning for that diesel consumption. Wanted to show and learn more about the driving behavior because we noticed it was the key value driver. We also wanted to set up then individual driver reports, and currently we work on sending those as live data to the driver for better monitoring of his personal driving behavior. Then we're at the end as well installing an assistance system in the driver's cab. All we learned along that journey, it was mostly depending on our driving behavior of our staff. And for this reason, we knew that we would not be successful as long as we wouldn't extend our planning and analysis to the operational unit. So we closely developed the application and the algorithms together with them. The FP&A, so to say, was fully transferred to the operational unit at the end, but FP&A can still use the same tools, share the results, look at the same data. And I think with this transformation, we definitely reached an xP&A. The next page, please. Now we briefly look and dive into the analytics part. It is necessary to set up machine learning, but please don't worry, it's not as theoretical as you might think. Anyway, you need an IT application. So developing such apps usually does not get covered by any skills of your FP&A staff, at least not at our company. So we had to hire someone with both programming skills and a business analyst attitude. And this is why we hired data engineers to start with a collection of data from different sources and for working out the algorithm and the applied statistical models. Our algorithm was developed to answer quite simple questions. And we looked first at the question that tackled route segments with the largest potential of energy saving. And we asked where and when and which vehicle model, so to say, the basis. Our question number 2, there we asked for the group of representative train rides. And within this group, we started a classification of good, bad, and average rides with respect to its energy consumption, but also depending on time. And together with that operative unit, we finally defined a set point for evaluating the consumption. The last question asked for the best-in-class driving style. And we came out with a recommendation of a driving profile per route segment and generated that out of the historic data. And this year now is the point where machine learning comes in. With a daily growing larger database, and by adding other influencing factors, we had, for example, weather conditions or unpunctual trains running in front of the ride, we added those to the equation. And with this, we had our machine learning in place. Can I have my last page, please? So what did our journey teach us? I remember we had pretty good chances to proceed fast in any use case when all the experts we needed were available and when they got part of the team from the very beginning. And true experts were not only found at the respective operational unit, but also across functions and on any management level. And this is why we reached out and integrated and extended our view. Further, we learned that the necessity to stick to our performance indicator was gold, because this is an agreed set of KPIs, and it has to become the basis for starting your journey too, because it also helped us to communicate very clearly benefits of our undertaking. Then we had a spirit of trying out, starting at the beginning with smaller use cases as experiments, and we looked at low-hanging fruit for our data projects and identified use cases that could be realized within a very short time span. And with it was very small steps that helped us to proceed fast, to rapidly gain experience and provide convincing results. But in any case, we would not be there where we are without a modern data architecture and tools, because they allow you to have a very consistent access to data across your organization. This is very much in line to what Emery told us before, and you definitely have to think about that heavily before you move on with anything like algorithms. So all I talked here is quite some change to your organization, of course, but I believe that it can only be mastered well when you look thoroughly at your human factor, because it's new skills and you have to find an open mindset. They are crucial for your journey. And when you try out new things, you need to set up something like laboratory conditions. Those can be easily assisted by something like modern project management methods, Scrum, for example, because they reduce the complexity of your project and they offer you enough flexibility. Then when we start talking about using new tools and adapting processes in your company, as with any change, I believe that some of your staff might face uncertainty and fears might come up. We did spend quite some time to invite anyone to be accompanied along our journey, and to become a more digital organization can only be done together. Well, now I'm at the end of my presentation, so let us take a brief look at the effects we generated within the first half year. Energy savings led us to an honorable financial impact, and at the same time, we largely reduced the CO2 exhaust for a better environment. My experience I shared with you is meant to inspire you. It's meant to take your to inspire you to take your first step today. Don't wait any longer. I assure you it's very promising, and you can proceed with the speed you want and with projects as large as you choose.